Hamas released footage of their fighters in tunnels underneath Gaza City. An Israeli checkpoint comes under fire in the West Bank, and Iran tells Hamas they're not going to enter the war on their behalf. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 10:30 a.m. Central on Thursday, November 16th, 2023. Overnight, Israel released the names and pictures of 3 additional soldiers that were killed during the ongoing fighting in and around Gaza. That brings the total number of Israeli forces killed since the ground operation kicked off in Gaza to 51. The Gaza Health Ministry put out updated statistics through Al Jazeera. They say that since October 7th, at least 11,500 Palestinians have been killed, as well as 29,800 wounded. Again, the Gaza Health Ministry, their information is at the very least vetted by Hamas before it's released publicly. And I should note that they started adding some caveats to their tracker here. So they used to just put out a firm number, an exact down to single digits number. Now they're starting to say at least or about with some of these figures, which is probably how it should be. In the middle of an active war zone, it's going to be very, very hard, nearly impossible to get down to an exact individual count of total casualties on any side. Moving to the ground operation, Israel's primary focus right now is going to be in and around the Shifa hospital. However, it's not as though their elements all across Gaza City have ceased operations. The fight is still very much ongoing in quite a few areas. Yesterday, the IDF released a about 7-minute video that we published on this channel here, showing what they uncovered in one of the areas that they had already cleared of the Shifa hospital: weapons, radio equipment, vests, military uniforms, things like that. Today, the IDF put out a note saying that, quote, "Our latest findings reveal a Hamas tunnel network beneath the complex, a matter that requires immediate attention. Today's scans uncovered significant underground infrastructure within the hospital premises, and our forces are actively engaged in efforts to expose and address these developments. We possess clear information indicating a connection between Hamas activity at Shifa Hospital and the presence of hostages." Now, Hamas continues to say that there is no military infrastructure underneath the hospital, no tunnel networks that are being utilized by their forces. And they say that all of the weapons and military equipment thus far shown by the IDF that they say they uncovered in Shifa was all planted by Israeli forces. So I'd imagine that in the coming days, as Israel identifies the tunnels that they say are there, we should start to see some pictures and videos of those locations. Now, over the past 24 hours, Israel released footage of one of their elite units known as 16NOV2023. Apologies for the pronunciation there, which I probably got at least a little bit wrong. This is a unit comparable to U.S. Navy SEALs. So this organization was tasked with securing the Gaza harbor, which over the past 24 hours, they say is a task that is now complete. Additionally, Israeli Defense Forces say that they, during ongoing operations in northern Gaza, discovered rockets stored in a child's bedroom as raids and clearance operations continue across multiple portions of the city. In terms of civilian evacuations from Gaza, the IDF once again opened routes to the south, with a complete encirclement of Gaza City. Any civilians wanting to exit the battlefield are going to have to pass through Israeli lines. So Israel put out a set period of time to where they will be accepting the flow of civilians out of Gaza City. Additionally, they said that there would be a pause in hostilities in a handful of areas across northeastern Gaza to allow for humanitarian aid to flow in and for civilians to exit their homes and safely evacuate the area. Now, in terms of Hamas, they put out over the past 24 hours that they have completely or partially destroyed another 11 Israeli vehicles. Of note, I've not seen the pictures or videos to accompany those claims quite yet, but Hamas did release some footage that I'll go ahead and play here, showing some of their fighters moving through these tunnels in and around Gaza City and popping out at various points to engage Israeli forces. Again, I don't know that the existence of tunnels in and around Gaza is debated. I think that's well understood at this point. In case there's any confusion there, here's Hamas showing their actual tunnels. But we've got a lot of different aspects here, one of which is what appears to be a mortar firing point. Something like this, somewhat concealed, somewhat underground, would allow Hamas to fire mortars or rockets even, and remain somewhat concealed from UAVs or any other Israeli aircraft overhead. Now, shifting over to the West Bank, an area that continues to simmer and could potentially boil over into a third front in this war, the first being between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, the second being between Israel and Hezbollah, kind of heating up to the north. The West Bank has the potential to be the opening of a third front. In the past 24 hours, Israel has arrested at least 78 Palestinians in the West Bank, and Israel says that at least 20 of those were associated with Hamas. The Palestinian Commission for Detainees Affairs says that the arrests were accompanied by abuse, beatings, threats against families, and the destruction of Palestinian homes. Additionally, in the West Bank, 3 gunmen opened fire at a checkpoint between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, wounding 6 Israeli security officers and killing 1. Israel said that 2 of the gunmen belonged to Hamas and that the evidence suggested that they were planning a much larger attack. That claim that at least 2 of the gunmen were associated with Hamas was confirmed by Hamas when they put out a statement saying, quote, Al-Qassam Brigade's West Bank announces its responsibility for the operation to storm the tunnel checkpoint south of occupied Jerusalem this morning, end quote. Now, shifting outside of Israel for a moment, a few weeks ago, Hamas leadership met with Iranian leadership in Tehran, and we're starting to get some leaks about the conversation that took place during that meeting. The leaks supposedly coming from some members of Hamas. According to those leaks, Iran told the Hamas leadership, you gave us no warning of your October 7th attack on Israel, and we will not enter the war on your behalf. They said that Iran would continue to lend the group its political and moral support, but would not intervene directly. Additionally, they say the Iranian Supreme Leader pressed Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, to silence those voices in the Palestinian group, publicly calling for Iran and its powerful Lebanese ally Hezbollah to join the battle against Israel in a full force, according to a Hamas official speaking to Reuters. Now, there has been some talk recently that Iran might be concerned with how quickly this thing has started to escalate, and one of those concerns could be due to how quickly the United States moved 2 carrier strike groups into the region. That is a lot of firepower. Those strike groups are not there to deal with Hamas. They, could be there to deal with Hezbollah. That's a pretty one-sided fight. That is a direct threat to Iran. It's possible that had an impact, and Iran here is telling their allies in Hamas, hey, don't count on us to step in anytime soon. Now, in terms of some of those U.S. ships in the region, the USS Hudner yesterday reportedly shot down a drone over the Red Sea that they say was launched from Yemen, the Houthis in Yemen, and headed towards the ship, which this is not the first time the Hudner has shot down Houthi munitions, be them missiles or drones overhead. In past situations, it's been rather vague, saying they think these were likely headed towards Israel. And one time they called out and said these were not headed directly at the ship. The ship was not the target. Different here. In this case, they say the drone that was shot down was headed towards the U.S. ship. That, talk about escalation, that's a surefire way for this thing to escalate. If a U.S. ship is struck by a Houthi, Hezbollah, or Iranian missile, this is going to spiral fast. Now, back here in the United States, there was a large pro-Palestinian rally in Washington, D.C. I'm going to walk through that the same way that we talked about the pro-Israel rally from one day prior. So looking at the different headlines from a handful of publications, mostly here in the United States, and we'll pull in Al Jazeera as well. So starting with NBC, they said that 150 people were illegally and violently protesting outside of the DNC headquarters. Newsweek said videos show pro-Palestinian protests erupt in violence. ABC said Capitol officers injured in clash with group protesting violently. AP, the Associated Press, says police and protesters clash over the Israel-Hamas war. And Al Jazeera says U.S. Capitol Police clashed with protesters calling for ceasefire, saying police used pepper spray and fired projectiles with chemical irritants on the non-violent protesters. But again, just thought it was interesting to see how all these different publications kind of slightly cover the same event differently, right? That the text of the articles isn't drastically different, but each one decides what's going to be most important and what it throws in that headline. And every one of those headlines is different to some degree. But that's all I got for now. Now, we made a few changes to Substack in addition to the weekly sit reps that'll continue to go out. We're now uploading ad-free and sponsor-free videos about an hour before they go live on YouTube. So if interested, check that out in the link below. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.